Okay, Thomas already sent the link to you. Okay, please check your email. Okay.
เข้าไม่ได้ค่ะ
And
Team
we will start
Malaysia also
Okay, we
Got
start
it.
with
also haven't received the link. Sachin and Mimi, the Ministry of Industrial Trade. Have you sent it to the emails?
Do you mean the speaker himself?
Yeah.
Hello?
Mimi sent the link to him again in the morning today.
Already?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe
Hi,
you can
all.
share
The
with me
webinar
and yeah. Thank you.
I mean to say कि वो एक तो वैसे last minute call थी.
Hello, Abid.
Dear colleagues who are joining us now, very big welcome from our side, from Switch Asia side. We are waiting now for 1 or 2 minutes to address some last-minute technical problem. Apologies for the delay. Thank you.
Mimi, Zenaida, shall we start?
Please go ahead, Sachin, please.
Okay, great. All right. Sorry for a slight delay. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone joining us from across Asia and beyond. Before we begin, I just want to go through a few slides on housekeeping and translation services. Mimi, can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So this webinar is available in English, but we also have translation services for Russian and Thai languages. For those accessing the webinar through the computer, you might be able to see a interpretation symbol at the bottom of the screens. And so you can access them through that. Once you click on it, you will see the kind of languages that, both the languages are available. And then once you click on your preferred language, you will hear it in that language. Next slide, please. This is also available if you are on a smartphone or a tablet using Android or iOS operating systems. And there too, you will have the language interpretation button available in the menu bar, and the rest is the same. You will get the choice of language that you want to hear in and select either Thai or Russian. Next slide, please. The participants are muted already, and if you wish to contribute to the discussions, you could either post your comment in the chat box or also send it in the QA, but we would prefer if you put it in the chat box because we are monitoring that constantly. The recording of this webinar will be available to everyone, and we will send it to you along with the presentations that will be made after the webinar. And if you have any other follow-up interest, then please send it to us over email. You can see my email address there on the screen. Next one, please. All right, so my name is Sachin Joshi, and on behalf of the Switch Asia program, it is my pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar, Extended Producer Responsibility, a Key Lever for Circular Economy. My colleague and Switch Asia Policy Component Team Leader, Dr. Zunaida Fadiva, will also be chairing this webinar. We are truly delighted to have such a diverse and engaged audience, as they are also kicking in as we speak, as well as an excellent lineup of speakers to explore the evolving landscape of EPR and circular economy policies and practices across the Asian region. As many of you know, EPR is increasingly recognized as a powerful policy tool to promote sustainable production and consumption, reduce environmental impacts, and foster circularity, particularly in sectors such as plastics, electronics, and textiles. Next slide, please. This webinar marks the successful completion of our technical advisory work on EPR implemented across 5 Asian countries, namely Kazakhstan, Malaysia, Pakistan, Philippines, and Thailand. We are excited to share the key findings and insights from this regional engagement with you today. Today also marks a new beginning. Building on our work on EPR, we will now turn our focus on advancing the use of circular raw materials in production processes, an area that holds great potential for driving circular economy transitions in the region. And you will hear more about this next phase later in the webinar. We are honored to be joined by the experts whose contributions have made this work possible. Our heartfelt thanks to our national experts, Yerbol, Han, Abid, Grip, and Annette. A special acknowledgement to Dr. Thomas Lingvist, widely known as father of EPR, for coining the term, but also for pioneering its implementation in Europe and advocating its global adoption. And a warm thanks to Pranshu Singhal, whose contributions to EPR and recycling systems in India have been exemplary, and we have benefited from his experience as well. We are also privileged to welcome 2 senior government officials who have played pivotal roles in advancing EPR and circular economy in their countries. Mr. Zahalson from the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry, the Government of Malaysia, and Mr. Mudassir Razak Siddiqui from the Ministry of Commerce, Government of Pakistan. Thank you once again for being here. I look forward to a rich and insightful discussion. With that, let me now hand over to Dr. Zunaida Fadiva for her opening remarks, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues, partners, dear guests, dear colleagues. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this regional webinar on extended producer responsibility, where we are looking at it as a lever for the circular economy. And the webinar is hosted under the EU Switch Asia Policy Support Component. I would like to start by acknowledging the presence of our esteemed panelists, which are mentioned already by Sachin, governmental officials, national experts, and all of you joining us across from the regions, not only in the Asia and the Pacific, but also from Europe. Let me take a few minutes to give you some context for our today's discussion. Why we are here, what Switch Asia is supporting, and how this work contributes to the circular transformation in Asia and the Pacific region. The Switch Asia program is the largest EU-funded program on sustainable consumption and production, and as of today, it operates in 42 countries across Asia, Pacific, and the Middle East. Our objective is to support the transition to low carbon, resource efficient, and circular economy, while fostering more sustainable supply chains and production chains between Europe and Asia and within Asian regions. The program consists of two main components. First is a grant scheme, which pilots innovative SCP practices on the ground, mostly with a focus on small and medium-sized enterprises. Today, there are active 33 projects across the region. And the second component is a policy support component, which provides technical advisories to national and regional authorities to integrate SCP, sustainable consumption, production, and circular economy into strategies, frameworks, and implementation pathways across different countries and across the regions. Next, please. In this third phase of the policy support component, I mentioned that it operates since 2007. We focus on multi-country and regional approaches, such as today's webinar, for example, that allow us to build synergies and peer learning across borders. The objectives of our policy support work are threefold. You have it on the slide. First is to support the design of national and regional action plans on SCP and circular economy, including, for example, green public procurement. Second is to assist government in mainstreaming sustainable consumption and production to their climate strategies, especially into NDCs, national determined contributions, and in the response to different other multilateral environmental commitments. And finally, to foster policy dialogues and knowledge exchanges between stakeholders in Asia and the EU. And our webinar today is one of such events. In our policy advisories, we are not only helping to shape policies and enable dialogues among ministries and sectors, but we also very strongly emphasized in the objective 2, which I just mentioned, are really emphasizing the critical link between material use and climate ambitions. By doing so, we recognize that circular economy strategies play a key role in reducing emissions, enhancing resilience of economy and economies, and also meeting the climate goals. Next, please. The themes we support through our technical advisory span a very broad range of pressing sustainability topics. Again, it's all done on the request of the national governments or regional organizations. And as you can see here, these themes include plastics and packaging, textiles, APR system, agri-food, sustainable tourism, greening of small, medium-sized companies, sustainable finance, climate, material linkages, and circularity in construction and buildings. Just a brief overview. All of these materials can be found on online on our website. May I just ask colleagues which are supporting us from the background to share the link to the descriptions of the grant projects as well as technical advisories, such as those mentioned briefly here. So these areas reflect the diversity entry points where SCP and circular economy principles can be embedded into development planning and into policy reforms of different countries and the region. Next, please. And now we are coming to really the topic of APR, which we are considering really as a driver for circular economy. So one of the regional priority and one of the technical advisories with which we are working consistently is extended producers' responsibility. At its core, APR shifts the responsibility of the product end of life from public authorities to producers. And what we are doing in our work, we are seeing how embedding circularity directly into the product life cycle can be supported by APR-related instruments and by APR principles. But more than just a compliance mechanism, the APR is seen by us as a strategic enhancer for better product design, resource efficiency, and building strong secondary material markets. Well-designed APR systems are systematic. They shape legislation, they create demand for recycled content, they incentivize innovation and production models. However, as we know, reality often falls short of the ambition. And let us remember, and Thomas would confirm it, that APR from the beginning has been designed as an instrument not only to manage waste, but also to impact the upstream design of the products and services. So in many contexts, in spite of this initial ambitions 30 plus years ago, APR still operates primarily as a waste management tool with limited focus on upstream design and market incentives for higher quality or high quality recycled materials. So today's discussion is about really making this shift from collection and recycling, which of course need to be done much better and with great ambition, but we are shifting the discussion to how to use APR to prevention, design, and value retention within the supplier and producer chains. So next, please. What is clear is that current work of Switch Asia has been actually starting before in the work which we've done in Malaysia, Thailand, and India. The experts were really looking at the APR already from the perspective of the circular economy. So continuation of work now is really building at these initial assessments. But what is interesting here is that report which you see here, it's rather condensed, a medium-sized report, which could be really providing us with status of assessment and interesting recommendations. And may I just ask colleagues to put in the chat the link to this product of the expert. Next, please. Since middle of 2024, we've been working in 5 countries: Kazakhstan, Malaysia, Pakistan, the Philippines, and Thailand, on the dedicated technical advisory on APR, with objectives is to first to assess the APR systems in place and their alignment with circular economy goals. We also try to identify enabling factors and gaps for improving APR effectiveness. We looked on how to engage key national stakeholders in structured dialogues, really to look how APR can be paying more attention on circularity and therefore stages upstream of the product. And we really looked at how to develop practical policy relevant outputs, including national reports. Example, so next please, next slide. Example of the output for Kazakhstan is here, and for other 4 countries, this kind of reports are coming. And let us remember that, of course, these reports were based on the consultations with multiple national stakeholders. The experts also working on the guidance briefs and today's, and of course, today-like regional exchanges. Our technical advisory advisors, many of whom are here today, have also produced short papers that begin to address issues relevant for effective development of APR, as well as for its specific role in keeping materials in the consumption and production cycle. Next, please. So I will show you 2 topics where experts have been working. This is a short paper where the experts, particularly Thomas Link with support of other colleagues, have been looking at how circular economy can be more than just serving the recycling or waste management and separation, and how in Asian countries it would be wise to develop understanding and capacity to address the limitation of narrowly waste-focused management APR systems. Next, please. The next paper, which is already published on the website, so again, colleagues are supporting us now in publishing the links to those papers, are also very interesting because it really helps to bring and ground the argument that each and every APR system needs to be very context specific. And while we are looking at the European experiences, which are exceptionally interesting, so they cannot be copy-paste there, but it goes, of course, this paper beyond this formulate, if I formulate it that simplistically. Next, please. Other topics for the papers are listed here. So you have topics here which are about to be published related to the need for higher quality recycled materials, importance of local contextualization. Well, I already mentioned this, of APR framework, emerging themes such as total cost of compliance of APR and strategic sector prioritization. So all of this is there. And so can I please have the next slide? And it is my particular pleasure to introduce to you the team which is working on this technical advisory as the regional coordinating experts, particularly Pranshu, Thomas, and also Han, and also national experts which are helping us to get views of the national stakeholders, representatives of government, industry, civil society organizations, of how to consolidate the factors or employ factors which would strengthen the APR system with whichever goal it's pursuing at the moment, but also help to transform this into strategic instrument which is promoting circular economy. So all of these experts are with us today. They will be available for speaking. They will be part of the panel, but also they are on the background supporting us with answers in writing to the questions which you might want to put in the chat. With this, looking ahead, just let me say that today we will get deeper into this, and also Switch Asia, we are committed in supporting countries not just in adopting APR framework, but also making sure they work circularly. And therefore, we are really looking forward to this discussion to get inspiration for the second stage of this project for year and a half ahead. So please don't hesitate to put good ideas forward, put your questions clarifying, so that our next stage would be ambitious and interesting. Thank you very much. Look forward to today's discussions. Over to you, Sachin.
Thank you, Zenaida, for the very comprehensive introduction to the program and the TA as well. Mimi, may I request next slide, please? We now transition into the first panel, where we are going to reflect on the work that has been done in these 5 countries. And we will have short yet quite comprehensive presentations from each one of them. What they will cover is that's really the output of their work in the past few months in terms of baselining the policy environment and also the practices which have been undergoing in their countries as far as EPR and circular economy is concerned. Interestingly, in this basket of 5 countries, we have had a mix of countries with experiences on EPR, where there were 2 countries which had some kind of an EPR system already rolled out, whereas the others were still at the drawing board. And so we will hear all of that in the next hour or so. We have 5 presentations to go, so may I request every expert to please be concise and stick to your time of preferably 7 minutes. And so that, we are also left with enough time for entertaining questions from our audience. First, may I request Han from Malaysia?
Thank you, Sachin. Hello, everyone online. Good afternoon, good morning to you. My name is Han, soon from Malaysia, and I will start giving you a quick sort of run through of our TA's output. Mimi, can you please help to share my slide? Thank you. So while we get the slides up, just to inform you that we have actually spoke to different stakeholders during the technical advisory program, from government agencies, ministries, to industries, and also NGOs. So we get a wide range of views from different stakeholders so that we can understand what is the current status and the situation. All right, next slide, please. Let me just give you a quick update from Malaysia then. So I think I will start with on the policy side in terms of EPR and circular economy. I would say that from our assessment, there's abundance of policies and roadmaps that has been developed in Malaysia. Yeah, especially focusing on EPR and also, interestingly, linking it to the circular economy now. At the moment, the government is talking about going for mandatory EPR scheme, but the timeline is still being discussed, estimated to be within the next few years. And I think one of the things that has just happened this month is that the EPR framework policy that has been drafted by the Ministry of Housing and Local Government together with the partners has been approved by the National Council for Circular Economy just this month. I will explain a little bit about this council later on. Next, please. So this is just to show you that there are really a lot of roadmaps and also documents related to the policy side. So you can see the latest one on the right are all more on the circular economy blueprint, and we also have a circular economy framework for the industries that has been generated. So from the legal perspective, there are no mandatory PR system right now, but as I mentioned, it's in the making. There are already draft regulations prepared for certain ways, like household e-waste, and also now there's a circular economy bill that is going to be drafted soon in Malaysia. I think one of the interesting thing we found during our assessment is also the ministries involved have kind of formed some kind of a collaboration structure to work together on the EPR and circular economy space. Just also to note, there's an industrial-led PRO known as Maria. I think they are with us today, has already been set up a few years back. So they are already doing some voluntary programs and collection campaigns and so on. Next, please. This is just to show the institutional setup from producer to retailer, consumer, and finally the waste. So we sort of divide into upstream and downstream. So there are respective ministry that has been assigned to take care of the different parts of the supply chain. Yeah. So for example, the Ministry of Industrial Trade and Industry, who is I think with us today, they will be looking into the upstream part, focusing on the industries and the manufacturers. Next. So in terms of technical, I think just like many other neighboring countries, Thailand, Philippines, and even Pakistan, informal sector is still dominant in Malaysia, responsible for most of the recycling. Infrastructure is still lacking. Again, not new. So I think this is some of the things that has to be further enhanced. There are some EPR pilot schemes that has been tested and run by the different stakeholders. And I think the last point is pretty critical. That the recycling market currently is very much limited to valuable recyclables only. Next, please. So when we talk to some of these recycling players, we also get to know that there are some challenges. For example, the market price for recycled plastic is currently much higher compared to virgin plastic. So that makes it a natural challenge for industries to use them. There's also no real market creation at the moment for recycled material, and therefore it's probably not fully utilized within the supply chain or the manufacturing right now. Next, please. So this is just a summary of some of the gaps that we notice. The first one, I think, during the TA process, we find that they have the government kind of have organized themselves now much better. They have a structure and also constant collaboration now, which is very good to see. There's also things like mandatory fees, the standard and demand for the use of recycled material, creating the lack of a market for recycled materials. And there's also the informal sector competing with the formal sector. I think this is also common again with the other countries. Last but not least, the collection part, when we come to source separation and infrastructure, is also lacking. Next, please. Yeah, so awareness, things about the setup of the PRO, we also get to understand is still a process of in the making, where the industrial PRO and the government are still constantly discussing how do we move the EPR forward. There's also issues related to design. There's a lack of, I would say, push on this area. Therefore, I think this is also something that will be interesting in the next phase of our study. Next, please. I try to keep within the 7 minutes, so I'm rushing a bit. I'm sorry. So this is my last slide. So basically, I think what is important now for Malaysia is for the regulations to be quickly drafted and enacted. Of course, the infrastructure support has to be continued. And I think one of the focus we also see is that there's a need to create an upstream demand for the recycled material so that it can be mainstream and become a circular loop. Yeah, I think that's all from Malaysia. I'm happy to take any question. Thank you, Sachin. Over to you.
Thank you, Han, for that comprehensive, but yeah, I agree, sort of rushed presentation. I'm sorry you had to do that, but nevertheless, I think, you know, there were many important messages in impact very tightly. So I am sure that is enough to also trigger a lot of food for thought, but maybe some comments and questions also. The other thing also that, you know, we've seen that there is some of the issues are also cutting across countries, and so we will see some of those getting reflected as we move along. May I now request, I think it's Thailand, so may I please request Panette to take over. Panette, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Sachin. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So I think next, the second case study would be Thailand, and I think we are kind of comparable to what Han present about Malaysia. So we are kind of in the middle of policy development as well. May I have my presentation? Is it showing? Okay, excellent. So I think we can skip to the second one. So yeah, that's my name, and I think Sina already kind of introduced the team. So I want to kind of name the EPR development right now, within like the recent development in, I think Thailand is one of the country that trying to transition from the linear economy into circular economy. And under the current constitution, we have this kind of long-term plan for 20-year national strategy, and that kind of touch upon different aspects of this long-term planning. So it's about like, how to upgrade our industry 4.0. There is some kind of circular economy in that. And of course, there is 20-year roadmap for sustainable consumption and production plan. And of course, the pollution management, when you talk about like the downstream improvement in waste management. And then previous government, they kind of push quite hard on the new economic model called BCG. And B for bio, C is for circular, and green is for, and G is for green. So EPR has been seen as one of the instrumental policy principle within that. And that kind of moving the field of waste management, but also environmental protection. When we go to the next slide. And then I have to say that actually the effort to push EPR law has not been like the new thing in Thailand, but we have a new wave that kind of changing from like the 15 years ago when the government trying to have like the legal framework for electronic waste. Back then, the concept has been interpreted under the principle of polluter pay, and then EPR can be a reason for the government to charge the industry, put the fee in the governmental fund. But the concept of EPR for this second wave, it had been changed. So we have right now 3 acts that related to EPR that have been in the drafting process. The first one is cost, the management of EEE, waste electrical and electronic equipment. So that has been kind of the ongoing process since 2007. But then we also have 2 new drafts. One is called the Draft Circular Economy Promotion Act. This is more like umbrella framework for pushing circular economy. And EPR can be one of the approach under this act. And the other one is the Draft Sustainable Packaging Management Act, which would introduce the EPR system for packaging, select the type of packaging under this law. And the interesting thing about the second and the third one is that it have kind of comprehensive purview. It not only look at the end of life stage, but it also having stream and like the midstream, including the design improvement in like the objective of the law. So this is kind of the changing. Next slide. And the most important thing that I would like to show you in this slide is that there is also a shift in the tone of the government. 15 years ago, I mentioned that the government see EPR as a tool to kind of, introducing the product fee, charging on the industry, but they will manage the fund. Now we change in the favor of the industrial-led system. So the current draft, both for EEE and also for packaging, they will introduce producer responsible organization and let the industry running the show. Next, please. These kind of decisions have a lot of impact. I would say that it triggers the industry to be much more active. So here I want to present like the timeline for the past 3 years that has been playing out. So since the industry start to see the clear signal from the government that they would not, set up another governmental fund for EPR, but they would let the industry forming themselves and, trying to self-regulate within the industry. We have seen a lot of, useful pilot projects popping up, trying to test different selection mechanism, different way that they can working with the existing sector, the informal sector that has been mentioned, and also like the local government. So we have seen a lot of that happening in the last 2 years. So I think that kind of the good thing. And then you can see that this kind of input has been feedback to the government, and we have seen the pollution control department actually improving and modifying the draft law many times in the process. So I think this is very kind of positive. So in the next slide, I would like to list all the kind of enablers that I have seen. So can we go to the next slide, please? So we have seen a lot of enabling factors that allow EPR and other policy related to circular economy to flourish. The first thing, I think, the industry, not only they are aware about the circular economy, but they can see the convergence between the climate policy and the waste and the uh, product policy. Then closed loop solution will benefit them on both fronts. So we can see a lot of driver in that aspect. And then locally, Ministry of Interior that coordinate with local government, also trying to push for source separation with household and local government. So that kind of work well with the EPR development. And the industry have made a lot of investment in terms of recycling technology, in terms of reverse logistic infrastructure. So that kind of the benefit that we have seen. However, I have to remark that you see one of the picture that I show a lot of smoke. Recently, we have also see a lot of accident related with the the downstream industry, both with the waste disposal and recycling industry. So on the other hand, we also have a lot of kind of local pushback against some of these kind of infrastructure. So there has been some challenge within that as well, that this sector need to also be better regulated. And then the fourth driver that we have seen is the pilot project that I have been mentioned. The voluntary action by the industry in the past 3 years has been very strong, especially in packaging, but also in the field of like e-waste, in air conditioner. There have been take back and trade in program with the distributor. And the last one, I think the partnership like Switch Asia that we have conduct the project here, and also other agencies that kind of coming in and helping both the government and the private sector to catch up. However, in the next slide, which is my last one for this kind of very limited time, I list out 6 recommendations. And of course, the first one is like Malaysia. We need this kind of legal framework to be enacted. And it could come in the proper order. So we have like that kind of CE Promotion Act, the kind of the umbrella, the foundation. And then if that can be passed, and then we have special law for specific stream. I think that kind of work well together. So we would like to see this kind of synchronous effort by different actors to pushing for policy and legal framework. The second one is enhancing the stakeholder collaboration, the partnership between different agency in the government, and also between the government, the industry, and of course, we need this policy to be inclusive. So the informal waste collector should be, included into the system to improve their livelihood and also create convenience, and of course, improving the collection and recycling infrastructure. And when it comes to the consumer and participation, I think we need more incentive in addition with the educational campaign to raising people awareness and promote the responsible disposal practices to improve our waste management system. And of course, I think the final point that I would like to make is maybe we need to kind of coordinate and have this kind of centralized EPR oversight body. PCD is kind of running the drafting process, but we will expect that there will be more work into the future if the law has been passed, and there are a lot of issues when it comes to accountability and transparency, how the information will be handled in this system to make it effective. Because I think passing the law is number one important, but then equally important is if it has been passed, we need a system to implement and enforce the law properly. So that would be equally important in my recommendation. So that would mark the end of the presentation. There will be a full report on the country. So if you want to see the detail of all these points, I think you can revisit the report in the future. Thank you. Thank you, Sachin. I hand over back to you.
Thank you, Panet. Very interesting also, and I think you ended on a very important note that while it's important to pass the law, it's also important to ensure that there is a proper implementation and monitoring so that we know that the law has been effective. Thank you very much. May I now request Abid to present his work in Pakistan. Abid, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Sachin. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I must acknowledge my colleague Zanab Naim, who supported in this work and did a wonderful job. While looking at this EPR framework in Pakistan, how can I move the slide forward? Yes. Let me just quickly explain the waste landscape in Pakistan. So Pakistan, as you can see, that much of our waste is solid waste, including plastics, and the major sources, they are mainly agriculture, followed by urban waste, and then the industrial waste. So while one can argue that industrial waste is perhaps the more hazardous one, the agriculture waste that makes the predominant this industry waste landscape in Pakistan, and much of it remains uncollected. Almost 30% of it remains uncollected. Within agriculture waste, especially the plastic and the containers of pesticides and herbicides, those are also now becoming a quite important part of overall Pakistan's waste. And that's where one is talking of both the EPR framework as well as this circular economy framework. The highest waste volume that is concentrated in our metropolitan cities, Karachi and Lahore, which house more than 20 million inhabitants each. And that's where our major waste is. Next, please. Now, looking at the current challenges and economic cost in our paper, Zainab and I, we highlighted the major challenges, the weak enforcement. There are existing laws, but the enforcement remains weak, and there is no clear EPR mandate. Likewise, the consumer awareness and incentivization for EPR that is limited. The recycling infrastructure is both inadequate as well as limited, and informal sector remains overlooked, like in most of the Switch Asian the study countries where the studies would be presented today. And it also has economic cost, direct economic cost, as well as health and climate impact. And it also increases the cost of production and manufacturing because of lack of availability of secondary raw material, which can actually decrease the cost of production for many industries. And resultantly, the virgin plastic imports, apart from all other economic cost, the existing plastic is not used sufficiently in the value chain and supply chain, and B, the country has to import the virgin plastic every year. Next, please. Now, when we look at the key policies, and as I said, that there is no dearth of policies here from 2023. We have the policies on single-use plastic, and even in Sindh, this policies goes back to 2014. But this single-use plastic prohibition regulation, it was by the federal level. Pakistan is a federal country where we have a federal government and the provincial governments, and you can see that almost all the provincial governments, they have their own regulation, and federal government, it has its own regulation. And then we also have this plastic action plan initiative with the help of World Economic Forum. And again, all of these within their limited mandate and their staggered approach, they're trying to make a difference. And this is one of the launching pad for EPR in Pakistan. Next, please. Some of the stakeholders which can play an important role in EPR and are playing an important role in EPR, they include the government sector, which sets targets and monitor compliance, accredited schemes. We have producers and especially the multinationals, which in order to fulfill their international and global commitments are working both on circularity as well as on EPR. Core Alliance, which is the alliance of major industries, including multinational collection and recycling alliance. I'm one of the directors of Core Alliance, but my colleague Zainab, she is chairing a group of on EPR within Core Alliance. So this is working very rigorously on some voluntary EPR system. Then we have local government and municipalities. We have producer responsible organization, and then we have informal sector, which collects aggregate material. If I can also add another stakeholder here, and that is development partners. Partners like Switch Asia and UNEP and many others who through their support are playing a major enabler's role towards recycling economy and EPR. Next, please. Looking at the EPR framework roadmap, we are proposing the 4 phases, starting the first one where we have voluntary targets and national PROs. We introduce recycling fee via sales tax and electricity bill. That would be from year 1 to 3. Simultaneously, the second phase which can be overlapping as well as sequential mandatory registration and national reporting system, which can then leads to mandatory enforcement initially in 10 to 12% industry, which are considered as high polluting industry, and then going up to 25% recycling target. Next, please. The role that this producer responsibility organization they can play. I think this is slightly old version of the slide. We are also proposing, like Malaysia, this is an interministerial job. So no single ministry can do it. So we have proposed that along with the Ministry of Climate Change and Environment Coordination, Ministry of Commerce and Ministry of Industry at federal level, they should play their part, as well as some of the provincial bodies. So that has to be the oversight and this whole governance of PROs. That should be with a broader oversight body where these ministries, they play their important role, and the key responsibilities they can play will be to facilitate the producer compliance with targets, setting standard and reporting formats, developing and managing traceability, and oversee recycling fund disbursement, especially plastic recycling fund disbursement, and also to ensure that the initiatives they align with the NDCs, the country's NDCs and its draft circular economy policy. Next, please. Within this empowering informal sector worker, that is one of the recommendations that you will find in almost all the reports being presented today. One is mindful of the fact that in most of East Asia and South Asia, it's the informal sector which is actually playing a crucial part in EPR responsibilities as well as in circular economy, and their social protection, their registration, ensuring their decent work ambience, as well as their worker welfare fund, and offering training for skills and mobility. These are some of the things which is a recommendation from Pakistan, but I'm sure that these are the common recommendation from other countries as well. And within this, the NGOs and civil society organizations and municipalities who are actually supporting and working with many of these informal workers, I think their role also becomes important. And along with formalizing the informal worker, recognizing the role of these NGOs who are working with these informal workers, that is also important. Next, please. Now, way forward, we are recommending a national EPR framework with clear phased recycling targets. We are also talking of consumer paid recycling fee mechanism, and also highlighting and incentivizing why consumer they should pay this fee. I think this behavioral change and advocacy, these are extremely crucial and important. We are also talking of a registration mechanism for producers, reporting and compliance monitoring through intergovernmental body as well as through PROs. We are talking of use of recycled content and eco-friendly packaging, where Ministry of Industries and other government regulation would play a crucial role. But we are mindful of the fact that in order to do it, we need to have a recycling infrastructure that can actually then provide ample quantity of secondary raw material. And for this public-private partnership, that is important. Informal waste sector, its registration and clustering it into cooperatives, that is quite important, and that would also help in our enforcement mechanism and compliance audits. And we have recognized textile and e-waste stream as the two potential areas where this EPR framework should be implemented and rolled out. And that's why we had requested DG Textile and Ministry of Commerce as one of the distinguished speaker today, so that he can also share his thought and his feedback on why EPR and circular economy is important, especially in the context of CBAM and other European initiatives. And finally, we are talking of empowering SMEs as key players in localized recycling services. Next, please. Yes. So we do have Mr. Mudassar Raza Siddiqui, and we'll be requesting him to share his thought as well. And my colleague Zainab is also here. So if any other technical questions are there, she can also try to answer some of your queries.
Thank you, Abid, again for a very interesting and comprehensive sort of presentation on Pakistan. There is an immediate next, a couple of questions, and maybe as a breather to all the speakers and the participants, maybe we can take up a few questions that are in the chat box. Immediately related to you, Abid, is also a question of what you meant by a national PRO. Would it be established and run by the government, or it would be that of led by the private sector, but it would have a national presence?
It would be a private sector with national presence, but as we suggested that it should be housed, and the secretariat should be in inter-ministerial coordination body. So it can be a virtual secretariat, but we feel that the PRO in Pakistan, without the involvement of government agencies, relevant government agencies, will not be able to yield much result. So as I said, that the private sector like Core Alliance, they are already doing a lot on voluntary EPR standards, compliance, and on circular economy, but then a lot goes to the public policy. And that's why we feel that when we are talking of PRO, there should be a very clear involvement and clear roles and responsibility in a sort of public-private sector engagement. We know that our public sector is quite proactive, both Ministry of Commerce as well as Ministry of Climate Change and other aligned ministries. They are trying to develop a circular economy policy framework. I have already shown you some of the initiative that government has taken on plastic and reuse of this plastic. So one of the major gap that we found, government is unable to implement these policies without the involvement of private sector. And private sector, where proactive, is unable to adopt many of these policies without the support and facilitation from public sector. And on both sides, the intentions, they are well intended and they want to make a change. And that's why we are proposing that both of these proactive stakeholders, they should be brought together so that they can be a champion of change. And through their snowball effect, the EPR system and this circular economy, that can be rolled out to from multinationals to national and then to medium and small enterprises and then to micro small enterprises.
Sure. Great. Thank you very much. You also mentioned a link to climate change when looking at EPR. So I think it was Zenaida was seeking a clarification in terms of if you're trying to connect EPR with the benefits of climate change, or would you clarify that and elaborate?
Well, as you know, that climate change is a multidimensional, and the climate change policies, they are also multidimensional. When we're talking of link to climate change, we are talking of its links to green financing. As in Pakistan, there is already one very pilot case, interesting case in Lahore, which is where this methane gas reduction is being linked to carbon credits. We are talking of its linkages with the CBAM and other initiative where our exporters, they would be subject to carbon taxes if the emission across supply chain is higher than the EU standards or UK standards. We are also talking and linking it with the NDCs. Many of the initiatives in NDCs are there where adaptation and mitigation pathways can be directly linked with EPR. So we feel that EPR should not only be confined to consumer and manufacturers or the producers' responsibility. We should actually think and consider it in a broader landscape. And this broader landscape is your climate change, which provides many entry points as well as some of the challenges as well.
Thank you. Zainab has also raised a couple of very interesting points, and one of them is really the ownership of waste after it has, say, gone out of the household, or say, for example, any other unit that would have consumed the material. May I ask others on the panel, maybe Han, Panat, but also anybody else who wants to chip in and respond to that who really owns, and especially when there is an EPR, the ownership probably goes to the company and the recycler and the PRO. So wherever the responsibility, the accountability lies as defined by the law, that in turn for that part of the segment perhaps becomes the owner. But anybody wants to address that? And how are you also looking at it when you looked at your countries?
Yeah, maybe I can quickly respond to that for the case of Malaysia. I think it all depends on how the law has been enacted for waste management in the respective country. So for Malaysia, if I remember correctly, the waste ownership will be transferred to the contractor once it's in the bin. So it's defined in the law so that once you put it in the bin, it's considered another party's ownership. So that's the case for Malaysia, but I don't know about other countries.
Sure. Thank you. Let's go back now to the presentations and again, to take a break from a series of PowerPoint presentations, may I now request Grip to take the floor. Grip, I guess you preferred to not use the PowerPoints, which is very nice. And so, yeah, the floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Sachin, and good afternoon to everyone. Good morning also for those who are joining us from Europe and other regions. Yes, Sachin, I remember our conversation yesterday. I told you that I had a few slides prepared, but I decided not to because I realize if I have slides, I tend to go over time. Not because I am a lawyer by profession, so we get paid if we if we speak more. But kidding aside, I do want to give as much time to our other panelists and also to those who are joining us in this webinar. So I'll jump straight to it. And first, thank you to everyone in the team, to my co-experts from the other countries. It's been a pleasure working with everyone and also very insightful, especially since well, the Philippines is a country which is already in the midst of implementing EPR. As most of you will know, the Philippines passed its EPR Act back in July 2022, and it came into full implementation in February of 2013. So we have the Philippines has had almost 2 years of full implementation. And I picked up some and of course the details of what I'm sharing are in our national report, which will be shared with everyone soon. I picked up some of the updates which were shared by the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, which is the lead agency tasked with implementing EPR in the Philippines. And in their report for 2024, they noted that 917 obliged enterprises or those companies with 100 million pesos and more in in their financial statements, they have already registered their EPR programs as of the end of 2024. And this represents about almost 30% of the total number of estimated of obliged entities which are supposed to undergo the EPR program. And add to this 299 medium and small scale enterprises who have voluntarily registered. And as some of you would know also, the EPR only covers on a mandatory nature those large enterprises, large corporations, and MSMEs are only encouraged to participate. So it was quite interesting for the DNR to report that almost 300 medium and small enterprises decided to participate in the program. And one thing to note is that the compliance which the different companies have decided to undergo in terms of the EPR program has been focused on diversion methodologies. And this goes back to what our EPR Act mandates. Our EPR Act mandates diversion targets, and there are no mandatory recycling targets. So that means so long as a company collects a certain volume of plastics which it puts out into the market, it collects an equal amount of waste, it's already compliant with the law. So recycling is not mandatory, and some of the methodologies that have been selected include the use of RDF or co-processing technologies, landfilling, and shredding for use in other products. Recycling rates have remained the same, about 9-10% of plastics over the past few years, and there are ongoing studies which are trying to determine whether the EPR Act has contributed to an increase in recycling of plastics. In terms of policy development, there are ongoing efforts from the government to roll out specific rules and regulations to implement the law. There is a draft for consultation of a procedural manual, a list of fines and penalties, a final list of fines and penalties, and also a final reporting and auditing and certification guidelines. All of these are meant to provide the nitty-gritty details of compliance for EPR. And at the same time, the government, on the institutional side, the government is continuing to set up the regional offices of the National Ecology Center, which has been tasked to be the lead DNR bureau for the implementation um, of the EPR Act. Uh, so those are just some brief updates about EPR implementation. And um, based on our extensive consultations and conversations with those already involved in EPR implementation and also with our government partners, there are some trends which have emerged based on this analysis and our discussions. First is that the existing legal framework in the Philippines, anchored on our Ecological and Solid Waste Management Act, provides for an enabling policy landscape for EPR. And many have said that, and second point, EPR has been a positive step towards improving waste management. You now have greater awareness among companies, especially in the private sector, um, greater collaboration, greater convergence of efforts to comply with the EPR Act, and also at the same time to do their part in reducing waste and better managing plastic waste in the country. However, and third point, government capacity needs to scale up and improve. Over the decades, and many other previous studies have noted that waste management, solid waste management has been a continuous challenge in the Philippines, and government needs to improve its efforts in not only in implementing this basic waste management, but at the same time increasing its capacity to better implement the EPR app. And lastly, what we're seeing here is a greater linkage towards circular economy. As the EPR Act has been rolled out, there are increasing conversations both in and outside of government on the need to link the EPR efforts, link solid waste management efforts with the larger and wider discussions on achieving a circular economy for the Philippines within the context of a more inclusive and participatory approach. And we will get to this later. Now, the study then reveals several enabling conditions, and there are three main enabling conditions that have emerged, and these have been cited also in previous studies. First is that, again, as I mentioned, the government needs to focus on fully implementing the downstream measures and the basic waste management in the country. As many of us will know, this is really the backbone of implementing new measures such as EPR and moving towards a circular economy. Second, many groups have pointed out that there needs to be a paradigm shift when it comes to upstream measures. There needs to be an equal effort on the side of reducing the amount of waste and products that are being used, with products that are being disposed, efforts on eco-labeling, eco-design, etc. All of these need to have an equal focus and not just focusing on EPR, recycling, and even developing a secondary market for waste. And at the same time, there needs to be greater clarity on the role of the different stakeholders. I think our previous speakers did say that it's not just the producers who have a responsibility. For example, the consumers as well have a responsibility, not just with regard to complying with the regulations that have been put in place, but at the same time, they also need to be more conscious about the kinds of products they support and the kinds of products that they use. And lastly, uh, when you look at the elements of circular economy in the Philippines, there are several elements, and the previous study did point this out, that there are several elements emerging of this conceptualization of circular economy in the Philippines, which would segue to our way forward or the recommendations. Circular economy in the Philippines, and I wanted to highlight just a few points. One, it's rooted in Filipino culture and tradition. As many of you will know, the Philippines has the sari-sari stores or the corner stores wherein reuse and refilling systems were previously used. There is this mindset of not putting things to waste and trying to reuse and recycle something or repurpose or refurbish. Many other South and Southeast Asian countries also have the same culture. And one unique aspect, and I think Dr. Abid was pointing this out towards the end of his presentation, is that in our region, we don't only have the unique feature of having to look at the informal waste sector when we deal with EPR, when we look at circular economy, But at the same time, we have to look at the wider environmental justice and rights impacts of waste management. Uh, these environmental problems and the challenges that we face, all of them impact already vulnerable and marginalized society, and it adds that need for a more inclusive and participatory approach when it comes to implementing these programs such as EPR and moving towards circular economy. Now, to my last few points on the way forward and recommendations for the Philippines. First, um, it cannot be overemphasized that there is a need to continue improving solid waste management implementation in the Philippines. EPR and circular economy will not work if we cannot get basic waste management up and running and efficient all throughout the country, taking into account the geographical differences, taking into account that we have over 7,400 islands, for example. We cannot concentrate our efforts only in the big urban centers and leave behind smaller municipalities and rural areas. Second, there needs to be a continuous improvement and strengthening of the EPR system. As I pointed out, some of the things that still continues to needs to be done, but at the same time, the stakeholders have identified that there are still many areas of improvement in the EPR implementation, which can help shape EPR as a tool towards achieving circular economy. Third, there needs to be a people-centered and inclusive approach to developing a robust market for secondary materials alongside EPR. And I think this is where greater policy discussions and policy framing can be done, especially with our government partners. Right now, a lot of the effort is focused on the waste management aspect, on that side of dealing with the waste, on waste diversion, on recycling. But we have to understand that for to complement that aspect of implementation, we need a robust secondary market. Several other organizations, development partners have already pointed to the potential for this market in the Philippines. And this is also a way, and I point out that people-centered and inclusive aspect because in many parts of the country, it's the informal waste sectors, it's the corner junk shops who are actually practicing this sort of secondary market for waste, and they're actually the ones implementing the basic waste management within the small villages and communities that we call the barangay. And lastly, um, unlike the other countries like Han presented Malaysia that they're having many roadmaps and plans, Thailand also, Panat did mention. Um, in the Philippines, we sort of put the cart before the horse. In a way, we already have our EPR Act when we do not have yet a comprehensive circular economy framework or roadmap to guide the different sectors. Although we do have our national plan of action for marine litter, we do have a solid waste management strategy, but it was passed way back in 2016 and needs updating. But there is no one overarching plan or program to guide the different sectors. So in a way, yes, we already have EPR, but the Philippines maybe it needs to take half a step back and make sure that while we're implementing EPR, all the other sectors can move in, like let's say in developing the secondary market, the trade, finance, and other economic departments will have a big role to play in ensuring that this secondary market for materials will help spur not only the improved implementation of EPR, but also the move towards a more circular economy. I'll stop here. I hope I kept within time. Thank you very much, and back to you, Sachin. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg, very much. Very candid in a way also in terms of assessing. I think, you were one of those very few countries which already had EPR going, although not for too long, and therefore I think some of that review of how it is unfolding in Philippines is certainly very helpful. And to that extent, what among the many important things that you mentioned, I think one of the things to underscore is that as much as we all aspire for upstream measures and how EPR is instrumental or very useful helpful in secondary raw materials and the larger goals of circular economy. Something as basic as getting the waste management sorted, everything from collection and sorting, beginning at that level is absolutely critical, because if we don't get the waste management sorted, the rest remains inefficient and highly expensive also. The other thing, when you were mentioning about the number of islands, this is something which is very interesting, and I want to take it back to one of the papers that Zinaida mentioned in the passing, that and we are yet to publish it. And this is a paper on the total cost of EPR, and logistics is something that, and Pranshul has identified logistics as one of the important and costly cost centers in the whole EPR system. And I think, in the geographical characteristic of the Southeast Asian countries, Philippines, of course, Thailand, because a lot of these countries have lots of islands, or some of the countries are actually island nations, the logistics of waste management becomes extremely complicated and exorbitantly expensive. And that's why it is not common to see at some of these places waste being just dumped. And there are enough pictures for that, but otherwise it's just burnt. So, it's easier theoretically to say that, this should not be happening, and, there has to be a better implementation of laws and things like that. But I think, the geographical characteristics just make it very, the basic components of waste management and the whole calculations become very different. And that's where also the other short paper on contextualizing EPR framework to local realities, which Thomas kindly wrote for us, is also very important. Many times it's very easy to copy paste the framework and the legislation, but when the rubber hits the road, these local nuances step in, and that's where the implementation is very different. Okay, very interesting. Thank you very much again. And may I now pass on to Yerbol to present his work in Kazakhstan. Yerbol, the floor is yours. And Mimi, may I please request you to show the slides, please. Thank you.
Hello to everybody. Could I speak Russian, please? Can you switch on English channel? Переводчик уже работает, да? Ага. Окей, значит, меня зовут Ербол Разбеков. Я являюсь специалистом по отходам в Республике Казахстан. Я работаю со Свечази уже не первый год. И хотел бы поблагодарить Свечази проект за то, что он оказывает такое внимание к Республике Казахстан и вопросам циркулярной экономики, и в частности системе РОП. Следующий слайд, пожалуйста. Next slide, please. Окей. Значит, система РОП в Казахстане существует уже с 2016 года. Вначале это была частная форма собственности. Основной акцент делался на утилизацию упаковки, автотранспорта, сельскохозяйственной техники, утилизацию шин, аккумуляторов, масел и других жидкостей. В 2022 году система РОП перешла в руки государства, и это вызвало как бы некие дискуссии, так как оператор РОП стал монопольным. Следующий слайд, пожалуйста. Next slide, please. Значит, перед Казахстаном стояли следующие вызовы. Да? Первое – это недостаточная вовлеченность производителей в процесс переработки отходов. Очень много отходов, около 90% у нас отправлялось на полигон. И надо было как-то усиливать систему управления отходами. И в этом случае оператор РОП был одним из таких инструментов. Следующее – это ограниченные мощности по переработке внутри страны. У нас была слабая развитая инфраструктура, не так много заводов, и в основном они концентрировались вокруг крупных городов. А в Казахстане очень небольшая плотность населения. Значит, и последним у нас таким крупным вызовом была необходимость совершенствования законодательства, особенно в части стимулирования производителей и использования вторичного сырья. То есть у нас было не так много экономических стимулов, и система РОП была новым инструментом, не совсем было понятно, как работать. Естественно, возникали риски, связанные с бюрократизацией, может быть, где-то с подложным, ну, как бы неправильной отчетностью, связанную с деньгами. Next slide, please. Следующий слайд, пожалуйста. Next slide. Ага. С 2017 года система РОП стимулировала создание компаний по переработке отходов. И шаг за шагом инфраструктура начала наращиваться. Появились компании, которые стали собирать отходы, сортировать их, перерабатывать. Вот как вы видите, почти 80% у нас было нарощено компаний, специализирующихся на переработке и управлении отходами. Я считаю, что одним из таких триггеров, да, шагов, толкающих развитие этой системы, было создание системы РОП. Потому что через систему РОП начались выплаты компаниям, которые занимаются управлением отходами. Благодаря РОПу в Казахстане начала появляться отрасль управления вторичным сырьем. Next slide, please. Следующий слайд, please. Next slide, please. Благодаря проекту Свечазия были выявлены следующие как бы сильные стороны, помогающие оператору РОП становиться более сильными. Значит, во-первых, в Казахстане был создан сам оператор РОП, и он был утвержден на очень высоком уровне, на уровне экологического кодекса. Это самый высокий документ по своему уровню в области управления, в области экологии. Были разработаны другие подзаконные акты, связанные с оператором РОП. Это и по выплатам, и по созданию системы электронной управления отходами, учету. И также система была создана по отчетности, что является очень важным. Имеются экономические инструменты поддержки, субсидии, связанные не только с оператором РОП, но и в целом по управлению отходами. Одной из сильных сторон является то, что оператор РОП на сегодня является монополией. У него нет конкуренции, и ну, это как бы палка о двух концах, конечно, потому что когда организация не является монополией, она конкурирует, это как-то связано, может быть, с ценой. Но пока, так как у нас в Казахстане РОП является молодой организацией, хорошо, что это монополия. Оператор РОП принадлежит государству на 100%, контролируется вот с 2022 года, хотя это вызывает некоторые вопросы. И некоторые ассоциации по управлению отходами пытаются инициировать создание частных операторов РОП, которые будут специализироваться на отдельных видах отходов. Последним сильным стимулом является развитие инфраструктуры. То есть я говорил, что у нас пока она недостаточна, но она уже начинает потихонечку развиваться. Следующий слайд, пожалуйста. Next slide, please. Мгм. Конечно же, у нас есть и слабые стороны в системе РОП. В первую очередь, это, конечно, малый опыт работы с системой РОП. В системе РОП были замечания, предложения, претензии, но так как организация работает относительно недавно, пока не все ошибки учтены и исправлены. Государственное управление создает бюрократические замедления, да, а, так как государству приходится учитывать много факторов, и согласование малейшего изменения, оно связано с изменением законодательства на очень высоком уровне. Кодекс у нас в Казахстане утверждается президентом, поэтому малейшие изменения приходится менять на таком высоком уровне. Имеется негативный опыт предыдущего оператора РОП, того, который был создан в 2017 году, и это создает некоторое недоверие к самой системе РОП. Значит, работа с другими заинтересованными сторонами находится на начальном этапе. Оператор приглашает конкурсный, значит, смысл в том, что на сегодня, учитывая негативный опыт, оператор РОП приглашает в состав своего консультационного органа независимые организации, которые могут, находясь внутри системы РОП, давать свои комментарии и предложения. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Окей. Значит, в Казахстане слабо развит рынок вторичных ресурсов. В рамках проекта мы проводили исследования, и выяснилось, что не так много информации о том, сколько сырья образуется, куда оно уходит и насколько широко может развиваться рынок. И мы считаем, что это является необходимым шагом для того, чтобы привлекать больше инвесторов, да, и развивать рынок. То есть рынок необходимо изучать, нужны консультации, нужна работа с международными экспертами для того, чтобы предоставить такую информацию и заинтересованным сторонам, в первую очередь Министерству экологии и самому оператору РОП. А также такая информация должна быть доступна для широкого пользования, для того, чтобы привлекать инвесторов и развивать инфраструктуру. Следующим слабым пунктом является отчетность по отходам и вторичным ресурсам. Они требуют улучшения, так как мы наблюдали противоречия в некоторых цифрах, и необходимо более четко отслеживать цепочку сбора и переработки отходов. Мы считаем, что вот здесь было бы очень хорошо внедрить цифровизацию отчетности. Это было бы очень полезно Казахстану. И в Казахстане уже внедрено законодательство по переводу отходов в статус вторичных ресурсов, но пока это очень слабо используется. И здесь необходимо больше усиления. Хорошо. Next slide, please. Окей. Значит, мы
Sorry,
подошли.
Yervo,
Sorry.
sorry for interrupting you. Could you please take another 2 minutes?
Окей.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry. Can you wrap it up in another 2 minutes, please?
Okay. Yes. It's
Yeah,
just yes.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm
Sorry for
I
that.
have to wait because I don't know how fast translator is translating. Okay. So our recommendations. Okay. First of all, значит, развитие KPI оператора РОП. Значит, это мы подготовили 4 рекомендации в рамках проекта развития, значит, внедрение KPI оператора РОП. Второе – это дифференцированная плата за неперерабатываемые отходы. То есть мы хотим заставить компании, которые ввозят в Казахстан материалы, неперерабатываемые виды пластика или другие упаковки, платить больше, чтобы стимулировать ввоз материалов, которые могут быть переработаны. Следующий слайд, пожалуйста. Next slide, please. Ага. Введение нефинансируемой ESG отчетности. То есть у нас есть финансовая отчетность, но мы хотели бы видеть, как у нас контролируется цепочка поставок, и какие переработчики работают. Для этого нам нужна ESG отчетность. И последнее – это более активная работа с населением. И я хотел бы показать следующие 3 слайда очень быстро. Это предлагаемые дальнейшие шаги проекта. Next slide, please. Окей, project. Мы хотели бы предложить цифровизацию системы РОП. Ага, следующий слайд. Next slide, please. Значит, мы также предлагаем рассмотреть возможность оценка рынка вторичных ресурсов. И последний слайд, пожалуйста. Либо предлагаем рассмотреть модель альтернативного оператора РОП. Все, спасибо большое. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yerbul, and my apologies once again to rush you through some of those slides at the end. We are slightly behind schedule, so may I, without further delay, request Zenaida to take over from here and moderate the next panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Colleagues, one of the key enablers of effective APR is the existence of well-functioning market for secondary raw materials. Without demand for recycled content or, in fact, quality of such content, recycling system often remains underdeveloped and circularity goals fall short. So unless we have understanding the secondary, unless we have an understanding the waste which we want to become secondary material is of particular quality and there is a demand for that, market demand for that or regulatory demand for that, we cannot do circular economy. And we are honored to have with us today Mr. Siddiqui, Director General for Textiles and the Ministry of Commerce, Government of Pakistan, and Dr. Zakhaslan, Director of Delivery Management Unit at the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry in Malaysia. And both of you, gentlemen, are working at the heart of policy development in sectors, textiles and industry in general, that are central to circular economy transition and circular economy transition in your countries. We would like to hear your thoughts on the practical potential for secondary raw material markets in your sectors, the policy options that can support this growth, and the role of regulatory instruments like minimum recycled content and others. So may I just start with a question to Mr. Siddiqui. Mr. Siddiqui, given your leadership in the textile sector in Pakistan, what do you see as the key opportunities for developing a strong market for secondary raw materials within the sector? And essentially, what are the main challenges in unlocking these opportunities? And also, may I ask you, do you believe that introducing a mandate for minimum recycled content in textile products could be an effective driver to stimulate market demand and support the implementation of APR? Over to you, Mr. Siddiqui, please.
Thank you, Dr. Zinaida. I'm grateful for inviting me for this valuable webinar. Yes, EPR is important for Pakistan textile and apparel industry in its ongoing effort to further align with the evolving sustainability trends, circular economy, and strengthen their position as a sustainable, compliant, and the preferred sourcing destination. There is a clear understanding among the industrial player in Pakistan of the need to move towards sustainable and the circular products. I will specifically talk majorly about the sustainability component, which is evident from the developments in the areas of manufacturing sustainable and the biodegradable products like cradle to cradle certified products. Number two is the goods with pre-consumer waste, like we can use the waste in the yarn manufacturing processes, converting post-consumer waste into the recycled materials and finishing products, refurbishing imported and the locally available used clothing for the re-exports to developing countries, as well as consumption for vulnerable classes in Pakistan. You know that in our industry is also working on sale of the branded B grade waste while slightly modifying the brand names and the designs instead of shredding it and uh, forwarding this waste into the landfills. So you have particularly asked about the benefits of the EPR. I believe the EPR can help the industries in the environmental and the economic sustainability, as well as the social inclusion of the different classes in Pakistan. Let's see it with the lens of opportunity. Pakistan textiles and apparel industry majorly operates on the original equipment manufacture and the original design manufacture based models, where the products are manufactured strictly as per the international buyer specification, which even includes the buyer recommended input materials, accessories, and etc. So if we see it in the perspective of buyer-supplier collaboration, because you have mentioned that can we put a threshold for the utilization of the recycled material in the products, when a country is working in a contract manufacturing model, there is a role of the buyers, which needs to be factored in for the effective implementation of the EPR. The EPR work starts with the product design. That is actually a call from the buyer to use the recycled or the sustainable material, avoid use of the blended materials, eliminate physical labels and accessories, redesign the fashion cycle, reduce color inventory, excessive processing of material and the fabrics. This all initiatives and the collaboration between the buyer and supplier will certainly lead towards the less wastages and the durable products that can be used for the longer shelf life. And then up next, there's a role of the producer under the EPR. And we believe that the producer should be focused on the resource efficiency through process optimization, productivity improvement, and the waste reduction. And the last but the most important, there should be a joint effort by the buyers and the producers for reusability and the recyclability of the post-consumer waste. You have also asked me the challenges in implementation of the EPR. I believe in a country like Pakistan, there are the potential issues like the waste collection mechanism, as well as the logistics issues that have already been indicated by the different speakers. And number two, in case of the textile materials, there is a critical problem regarding the separation of the blended fibers and the processability of the recycled materials. And in case of the small and medium enterprises, they may lack the funds for the waste management infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So it's very interesting to hear from you, because we do know that Pakistan's relation with textile sector is very interesting, because within your country you have the whole of the supply chain, from really production of the fiber and dyes to the final product, and of course while supply chain being enclosed, encircled within the country, also quite a lot of interesting across the border materials are going on. So you're also bringing in the discussion the whole question of APR and across the border movement of the textile material. Can I just maybe ask you, is there any thinking going on in Pakistan, and from your perspective, with the angle to APR? Would APR somehow facilitate the movement and regulate not only practices within the country from the side of designers and users and producers, which would focus on minimization, but somehow would also impact across the border movement of the textile materials with the third countries, so to speak?
Yes, there is a lot of discussion going on this particular point, and you know that under the EU Waste Regulation Directive, that is also particularly associated to regulate the movement of the waste materials from the European Union to the different countries. And Pakistan has already submitted an application that we are very much interested to regulate this particular area, because we also do not want that any kind of a harmful or the hazardous substance move in to the Pakistan, and we do not want to, to be the part of it. And you know that Pakistan is the largest importer of the used clothing in the world. And at the same time, Pakistan is recycling that used second-hand clothing into the fibers. This is one part. And the second part is that we are refurbishing that used clothing in the different clusters in our in Karachi, in Faisalabad, and in other areas, and then re-exporting to the developing countries like Africa and other countries. And at the same time, this clothing is also being used by our vulnerable classes in Pakistan that cannot afford the new clothing. And so as per the different studies conducted in Pakistan, around 90 to 95% of that imported second-hand clothing is being used in the different forms. And there is a very, very less waste that is going into the landfills. And the fibers that are not, that we cannot convert into the fibers are being used in the different forms in the local transport setting, in the cushions, and these kind of a component. So more or less we can say that majority of the used clothing is being, used in the different forms in Pakistan. And number two, you also talked about the measures that Pakistan has taken. Pakistan is currently working on developing a national strategy on the sustainable and circular textiles. And for this, the government of Pakistan has established a national level advisory council led by the private sector representative. It includes the industry leaders, small and medium enterprises, academia, and also the different representatives from our provincial governments. So objective is that to align our policies as well as the implementation mechanism in line with the EU and the global regulations, including EU Green Deal, and APR and other regulations.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Mr. Siddiqui. Can I also invite the colleague from Malaysia, Dr. Zahaslan, from the perspective of Malaysia, broader industrial sector, how do you assess the opportunities for scaling up the market of secondary raw materials? What policies or operational barriers you see as the most significant? And do you see value in mandating minimum level of recycled content in industrial products as a way to create increased demand and make APR more viable?
Thank you, Dr. Zinaida Fadiva. And first of all, I would like to thank Such Asia for inviting Malaysia, and particularly the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry Malaysia, to participate in this very important conversation. Now, before I go to the specific question, I think I wanted to highlight that as has been mentioned by our colleague from Malaysian colleague, Mr. Han Soon, Malaysia has already put in place several key policies relating to circular economy, and the main ones are definitely the blueprint for solid waste management, and that came from the Ministry of Housing and Local Government, and the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry has launched this circular economy policy framework for the manufacturing sector in September last year. We also have the plastic sustainability roadmap that was launched by the Environment Ministry. So if you look at the policies that we already have in place, we have ministries, the key ministries already embarking on CE policies. And on top of that, we have the Ministry of Economy is trying to put in place an umbrella policy because we do not want a circular economy policies. Circular economy policies, they are not speak to each other. We want it to ensure that the whole process if you look at the material flows of the economy, from the materials that is used for input to the manufacturing process, the manufacturing process itself, and until consumption. So we have all the policies already covered. And additionally, we also look at we also have a green investment strategy that has already highlighted circular economy as a key investment lever for the to ensure that we have the right technologies to support the transition to circular economy. So the key point I wanted to share with you is that if you look at all these policies, we have EPR is featured in all of these policies. So for Housing Ministry, of course, it is important to have EPR to reduce waste from to divert waste from ending up in landfills. For environment, of course, it's good for it cleans up the environment, and for MITI, it allows us to get better recovery of secondary raw materials which the industry needs. And so in MITI's view, EPR is not just an environmental regulation. It is a cornerstone and a strategic enabler for achieving Malaysia's circular economy and green industrial transformation agenda. And this transition is not an option. In our estimate, roughly about 1 billion ton of natural resources will be extracted in the country annually by 2030. We do not transition. So this is not just environmentally harmful, but also economically unsustainable. We, as a manufacturing country, we cannot produce if we do not have raw materials. So EPR encourages resource efficiency, which ensures that Malaysia can continue to be an open trading nation by building an ecosystem of sufficient supply of circular input, which is important for us for the long-term economic resilience, as well as to penetrate the market as becoming more ESG sensitive. So I think that the shift towards circular economy in Malaysia and the broader ASEAN region presents significant opportunities for secondary raw materials market across various sectors. So I think as all the experts here know, that the core of the CE is about keeping resources for as long as possible and extracting maximum value out of it. And when it becomes waste, or when you already reach the end of life, then it can be recovered to regenerate new products and materials. So Malaysia has some strong commitments in our policy surrounding secondary raw materials. So under the blueprint on solid waste, we hope to achieve 40% recycling rate of municipal waste this year. And for the manufacturing sector, we are committed to increasing the use of circular material in the production process. Of course, for plastics, we already have aim to have like 15% of recycled content for plastic products and packaging. So the manufacturing sector, especially like sectors like E&E, automotive, plastics, textiles, there's opportunity to establish. We believe that there's an opportunity to establish closed-loop systems where the manufacturing waste, for example, like electronic scrap, plastic offcuts, textile waste, can be collected and reprocessed into new products. And there's also opportunity to come up with an industrial symbiosis. There are opportunities for industries to exchange their waste materials as raw materials for another industry, and this is the kind of thing that we are looking into, especially for those established in industrial parks. So a key initiative under our policy framework is to support the development of a digital waste to value marketplace as a centralized platform to drive business-to-business waste trading, and also promoting that kind of symbiosis. So this marketplace will also connect waste generators with manufacturers who can utilize these outputs as their circular inputs. There are also investment opportunities in secondary raw material, especially in advanced technologies for sorting, cleaning, and processing mixed waste streams to extract higher quality secondary raw materials. So Malaysia is encouraging this kind of investment in this kind of technologies by providing some sort of like green incentives for waste management, so that we can, in the form of tax exemptions. So, but I think if you talk about challenges, then one is definitely the perception that secondary raw materials are of lower quality compared to virgin materials, and which can deter manufacturers, but also not just manufacturers, even the consumers in general have that kind of perception, which needs to be addressed. And then there is not a perception, but some reality. Some sectors is facing this reality where the cost of virgin materials is cheaper than recycled materials. So fluctuations in the price of virgin raw materials can make secondary raw materials less competitive, and especially when the virgin ones are cheaper. So this is the kind of when we talk about industrial readiness, that they keep on raising these kind of issues, that the cost of transitioning to CE in the end of the day will be passed on to the consumers, which we do not they do not want. Of course, and finally, I think it's the availability or recoverability of certain product segments is also an issue. So on your second question regarding whether or not having a mandate to incorporate minimum levels of recycled content would drive market creation, I think the case for minimum recycled content policy is already well documented and considered some sort of like a settled fact. Obviously, there's a strong need for it, and in fact, we have this need embedded in as one of our initiative under the circular economy policy framework. Specifically, what we mentioned as Initiative A2, implementing minimum circular content requirements. So this initiative focuses on mandating that specific products contain a minimum percentage of circular or recycled materials, because we believe that it will create stable demand for those circular materials, such as in packaging, E&E, and consumer goods, and of course reduce the reliance on virgin materials, which will support Malaysia's goal under the CEPF to raise their circular material use rate. Yeah, that will be all from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much for very comprehensive and interesting highlights. So can I ask you, you've been talking about already existing minimum recycled content. So it's your initiative, which is A2, which is focusing on that. Are there any milestones or target for the 2025 or 2026? And are you well on target? Do you have these figures already from the side of the ministry?
So we have this initiative, and the plan is actually to roll it out by this year. We are a little bit behind, but fortunately, if you talk about progress so far under this initiative, at the moment, the Environment Ministry is working with an agency under our ministry to develop an eco-design regulation, which was recently given the green light by the National Circular Economic Council. So, like MITI, our ministry had proposed that the eco-design policy be implemented in parallel or together with the development of the EPR framework, particularly in terms of targeting the same sectors for initial rollout. I think during the meeting, we also agreed on the need to synchronize the eco-design implementation with the development of a plastic or with the packaging law and the minimum recycled content policy. So of course, eco-design is a much broader regulation, but and the minimum recycled content is usually seen as a tool, one of the tool within the eco-design policy. But at the same time, they are not the same. We still need to develop a separate minimum recycled content policy. You know, because I think that the target is different. Having a minimum recycled content policy is about creating the demand for you know, the demand for the secondary raw materials. Eco-design is a broader aspect to it.
Well,
So that is where we are at, yeah.
very good. So, can I ask both of you, Mr. Siddiqui and Dr. Zahaslan, from your reflections, I'm getting an impression that the circular economy and generally focus on secondary raw material is actually a very strategic goal, not in terms of necessarily only, and I say only in the, yeah, it's of course big only. It's not in terms of efficiency as economic advantage for the companies not to lose materials in the process of production, and even not as a only environmental aspect, but it seems like you're looking at it also as a way of strategic resilience for the country, right? So keeping materials within own access. I understand your caveat, your notice about the cost of raw material and virgin material. But my question is really, is there any strategic consideration of having access to the materials, no matter how the trade relations are going on? Is there such a consideration to keep materials somehow close to where they are used, generated, etc.? Can I ask, and this is a question for both of you, Mr. Siddiqui, can I just maybe put this question to you and then Dr. Zahaslan to you? Mr. Siddiqui?
Am I
So
audible?
Yes, very well now, please.
Okay, thank you. If I clearly understood your question, you are asking about that if an industry is generating the waste, is there any strategic intervention?
In addition to economic consideration of the costs and environmental considerations, of course, to avoid waste, which both are attributed to secondary material, is it also strategic consideration of having access, unobstructed access to raw materials and to the product, no matter how the trade relations are going on? So to what extent secondary materials for you?
Yeah, in Pakistan, you know that
Yeah.
in terms of accessing the materials, like the import of the materials, Pakistan has already liberalized the import of the materials to a greater extent. And most recently, Pakistan is in a process of developing a national tariff policy, and we are focusing to significantly reduce the tariffs on the input materials as well as the intermediates, which includes the recycled materials and the fabrics as well. And in case of the textiles, the majority of the raw materials are already at the duty-free. There is no duty imposed on the imports of the raw materials.
At the same time, you are saying that it's no imports, but there is requirements for the quality of these raw materials. It's what you started with, so that no harmful materials are entering the country.
Yes, definitely. Specifically to the harmful substances. You know that Pakistan is a signatory to the Basel Convention and the Stockholm Convention. And under the import policy order, we have clearly put a restriction on the import of the harmful substances in Pakistan. If it is totally banned, then it is not allowed. And if there is a certain limit, it has to go through a certain process to have a certification for the entry into the Pakistan.
Excellent. And let me just throw to you another quick question before we get back to Dr. Sahaslan. Pakistan already has textile recycling activity, which you recycling and reuse, right? And in a
Yes.
sense, refurbishing. What would it take to formalize and modernize this sector even further to leverage opportunities for the growing global market?
Yes,
we know
this
that
is
you
this.
have it already.
Yes, this is actually a very important question and, very much needed in Pakistan. We actually, as an informal, sector, in respect of the recycling of the second-hand clothing. And under our upcoming circular and the sustainable policy on the textile, we will be specifically focusing on, there are the few clusters in the Karachi and in our Faisalabad, that is actually the leading textile producing countries. So we are working on regulating and documenting the entire sectors under our upcoming policy on the circularity and the recycling. And you know that they also have some sort of the problems related to the let me give you with an example that if they are importing processed fabric, they have actually to decolorize it first, and there is a chemical process. There is actually a chemical process, and they use different sort of the chemicals over there. So we will be focusing on to developing some sort of a mechanism. Either we will be providing them the financial support to develop a effluent treatment plant over there, or we can, through our technical universities and the institutes, we are providing the supports to them to use the chemicals in a manner that there should be a less pollution and less polluted water, leading towards more carbon emissions and these sort of things. So number one, we have an export development fund that is dedicated for to be provided to the export industries that they can use to establish effluent treatment plants, like to improvise overall the management structure of these facilities. So the fund is available there. So under our textiles and under our circular and the sustainable textile policy, we will be focusing on improvisation of these facilities and to document them, and that so that there should be a clear sorting, segregation, processing, and conversion processes over there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Siddiqui. Now back to Dr. Sahaslan. Dr. Sahaslan, your reflections, please, on how important it is to keep material in the circulation within the country.
Right. Thank you. So basically, for Malaysia, when we talk about the circular economy framework, the basic idea is definitely to utilize domestic recyclable waste so that we can, first of all, clean up the country. And then secondly, to ensure that we do have a sustainable, sufficient amount of raw materials. So I think as we transition into CE, we will then require more that this domestic recyclates be retained in the country to feed into the manufacturer's needs. So because our CE framework is pinned towards the goal to, or the mission to push for net zero. So essentially, we do not, our framework does not encourage the importation of waste unless they are, we talk about, processed end of life waste, and even then, something that we need to discuss. But the idea is we do not want to encourage the importation of waste to be processed in the country and then to be re-exported. We have faced, we have experienced the influx of those things, and we had trouble dealing with it, because even though we contribute in a sense to reduce global emission, but then importing such waste and processing in the country will increase our territorial emission. So it does not support our goal to go for net zero. So we do not want that. On the other hand, processing the domestic materials will contribute to that. So that's basically the whole idea.
It's very interesting logic, colleagues. I think that from both of our speakers, we need to hear about this whole idea of perception of resources. So it's access to resources element comes and movement, cross-boundary movement of the element of the materials, and how the government started to look at it. So that's very, very important reflection from both of our speakers. Colleagues, as we are running somewhat out of time, we started a bit late due to the, again, with apology, our technical issues. I would put to both of our distinguished speakers one question about engagement with international partners. And may I just stay with you, Dr. Zahaslan. So how does MITI is seeing working with international partners as Switch Asia to advance and support implementation of your initiatives related to circular economy, to the secondary material use?
So I think for MITI, we are very open to having a collaboration with international partners, especially those that can help inform our policy development. We always utilizes resources, because I know this international organizations and even agencies from other countries, they come up with a lot of recommendations, and they've done they do the assessment. For us, it's a benefit to us, and it will help, the goal of achieving. I think it's a fulfilling mutual goal. So definitely, for MITI, we are open to considering collaboration with international partners such as Switch Asia to support, especially in identifying gaps in our initiative, and also to by leveraging on your technical expertise and your deep knowledge on the global benchmarks, and maybe even capacity building if there's one, so that it can support and accelerate our adoption on CE activities, including minimum circular content requirements.
Thank you very much. We look forward in continuation of this conversation in a more narrow expert discussion very, very soon. And with this, may I just invite Mr. Siddiqui to reflect similarly. How do you envision collaboration with partners such as Switch Asia to build and support APR framework in the textile sector, and to strengthen the secondary textile materials ecosystems?
Thank you, Dr. Zainada, for your question. And I believe in collaboration, because the collaboration between the different stakeholders always pays the favorable outcome. And let me share with you that Pakistan is already working with the international partners, including UNEDO, UNEP, and the GIZ. In implementation of the different projects on the capacity building and improvement of environmental sustainability in Pakistan. Our current project with the German association GIZ is on the recyclability of the used clothing in Pakistan, where they are working to improve the mechanical setting and also the processes of the different clusters in Pakistan to reduce the carbon footprints. And at the same time, under another project on improvement of environmental and the social sustainability, we are working with the German counterparts and our private stakeholder to reduce the industrial decarbonization and to enhance the sustainability of our operations. And we are very much open for further collaboration with international partners to improve the environmental and the economic sustainability in Pakistan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Siddiqui. We also will have a discussion with our experts in the country and us about possible engagement to the benefit of the country. Thank you very much. And dear colleagues all over the cyberspace, so let me quickly go to the quick summary and final highlights, well, from my side, and then I will turn the final word of thanks to Sachin. But let me thank both of our distinguished panelists for your thoughtful and forward-looking insights. It's really over high quality ambitions demonstrated in both of the countries. We really are very interested to not only to work with you towards advancement of your country's pathways towards circular economy, but also learning from you. And as at least within this project, we will have several countries in addition to Pakistan and Malaysia engaged. I'm pretty sure working with you would be also learning from your experience. So today's discussion reinforced that APR is no longer just about improving waste collection. It is increasingly recognized as a strategic lever for circular transformation, particularly when linked to upstream actions like product design, minimum recycled content requirements, etc. For Malaysia, we heard how initiatives like A2 progressing with clear milestones alongside of importance of industrial readiness, data system standards, various country-wide initiatives are there. For Pakistan, we were reminded that significant opportunities in the textile sector are there, and multiple projects are working on different aspects upstream and downstream to make the sector circular. And it's not only to adopt APR, but also to strengthen the circular potential of existing recycling effort. And also to position the sector for the demands of the international market, but also both of the countries' representatives are telling us that they're very careful now on not only looking what's happening within the countries, but also what kind of material flow and what kind of demands need to be across the borders of the countries. At Switch Asia, we remain committed to supporting this work if and when it's needed. Our goal is to help countries ensure that valuable materials are returned into the system and production and consumption so systems become sustainable, and that the leakages, whether through waste, inefficiency, or lack of value recovery, are minimized to avoid them and really to avoid them altogether. And this is central to making APR not just a compliance measures, as we say, but a true driver of sustainable circular economies. But again, APR is part of the big set of the measures, including the governance, including, as colleagues, our experts emphasized, including through attention to the just and inclusive transition in whatever form appropriately it is to be taken within the countries. Some interesting points were brought through the interaction, engagement with business, differentiated responsibilities, concept of avoidance and its interpretation. And again, we can't repeat it enough. The Asian region is there, and there is a need to look at the inclusivity and justice in transition to a circular economy. Now, the question of governance, again, I mentioned, has been brought in the previous and this panel. So it is really a question at the core. It's not only the transparency and accountability of everybody involved across the supply chain, but it's also quite important to see how to have this overarching coordinating system for all sectors at the highest of the level of government. So thank you once again from my side to our speakers, to participants, to the experts, to partners for your engagement. And with this, I would like to hand over the floor back to Sachin to close this session. Thank you very much. Look forward to working with all of you again.
Thank you, Zenaida, for a very interesting panel discussion and also for a great summary of the key points that came through throughout the webinar. I'm not going to hazard adding anything to that, but I might just add that, just listening to our distinguished speakers from the two countries, the government speakers from the two countries, they have really underscored the importance that the governments realize in the competitiveness and resilience to, if not the entire economies, but specifically some of the sectors where they already have a competitive advantage, but they would want to continue to retain that advantage by a transition to circular economy. And the transition, they did acknowledge without having to explicitly say so, that it's not going to be straightforward and easy, but it requires, a lot of those measures that they have already outlined. And I couldn't be more excited to be working on, some of these interesting opportunities that we have in front of us. So with that, thank you very much indeed to all our speakers, our national experts for making the time, and especially to our national experts. Also, congratulations on successfully completing the first phase of this TA. I think your findings, clearly demonstrate that there's a lot of value attached to it, and I'm sure that not just your host governments, but also many other stakeholders around the world will have a lot to take away from your outputs. To the participants, thank you for being patient with us and staying along. And we will share the recordings and the presentations immediately after this webinar. And the publications that we talked about will be published in a due course, so please stay tuned. Once again, thank you very much and have a wonderful evening and the rest of the day wherever you are. Thank you. Bye-bye.